Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Threads Together, Communities United by Stitches and Stories. My name's Keith Stokes-Smith. I'm working with Helen and Jill and Michael, a part of the team, on this fantastic project. And we have, as I say, three others. Michael can't be with us today, but we do have Helen and Jill, with Helen being the fantastic expert and skilled person on this issue. So first of all, Jill's in the bottom right hand corner of my screen in the blue dress and Helen in the red, and I think they've got their names on them as well. So first of all, Jill, what is Threads Together?
Threads Together is really a fulfillment of my dream. A few years ago I was honoured to be Lady Mayoress of Birmingham and met thousands of other Brummies, some like me who were born in the city, and many, many more who came from far and wide. In the conversations I had with people, a common thread running through all our conversations was that they worry that their traditions and skills and aspects of family life were being lost through the rush of modern life. I was worried about this on a personal basis, that skills that I'd had were no longer of interest to the younger generation. And this also meant that generations were losing touch with each other. So after lots of consideration, I thought of bringing people together through Stitch, because it's a relaxing thing to do and people chat and get together to Stitch, and it brings generations and communities together.
I think you've answered my second question as well there then, Jill.
Yes.
What is the aim of the project?
Yes, well, the aim is to, then the announcement came that Birmingham were going to host the Commonwealth Games. So this gave us a catalyst to bring communities again together. You didn't have to be able to run or jump or swim, cycle, anything like that. All you had to do was sit in a group and put a few stitches into fabric. But luckily I'd met Helen, and she joined me to share my dream, and it's now coming to fruition. We'll tell you more about the panels, but when I say a panel, it's a piece of fabric stretched onto a wooden frame, and each country will have their own individual panel. On this panel, Helen, as designer, will interpret people's ideas of what they would like to see on their country's panel. Each participating country will have their own unique design, again thanks to Helen's skills. To find out what people want on their country's image, we've devised a questionnaire which we're circulating at the moment through word of mouth and personal connections. But in the future, it will be on social media and other public formats. So over the years, I've thought of all these people with their various ideas as a tangled bunch of threads, but together, coming together with Helen's skills, we can make these bundle of threads come threads together and produce something beautiful, long-lasting, and a real legacy of the Commonwealth Games coming to the city.
That sounds very unique, Jill. Very creative. So well done.
Yes, yeah.
And there's going to be, I think, about 70 panels, 70 to 80 panels.
That's it. I think Helen's going to tell you more about that. But our aim is there are 71 potential participating countries, and I'm sure we have representatives of all of those 71 countries in our city. We've contacted about a dozen so far, different countries, but with the help of the Commonwealth Association and other groups that we have connections with, I'm sure we'll reach everyone before too long.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. And Helen, why is it important? Why is the project important?
I think the project's really important because the idea of having something that represents all parts of the city, and Birmingham is more than just what happens in the city, it's who's in the city. And I've never been in a place, I was lucky to be born a Brummie, but I've never been in any other place like it in the world where you're welcomed as a Brummie. You don't have to be born here. And I think people really feel that it's a friendly city. So we've seen it as a kind of microcosm of the Commonwealth. And we wanted that to be represented, and we wanted all of those cultures and all of those stories and memories to be brought together into one big collective textile project. And it's just really important as well. It was important to start with, it become more important because gathering those memories and stories whilst they're in living memory, it's vital, and particularly at the moment where we're all separated, living separate lives in our own homes. It's just added that extra dimension to it. So the idea of being able to reach out, share stories, share information, learn more about each other, and really build those communities and build those bridges back up to be better than they ever were, hopefully. So it's a vital project.
How do we actually aim to reach out to the communities?
Yeah, I mean, so Jill mentioned that we've got a questionnaire initially. So we're looking to gather information about why people came here, what brought them here, whether it was industry or personal links, whether it was chance sometimes. We're trying to gather all of their information about what was important, what they brought with them, what memories they hold on to, all sorts of facets of what makes their experience of being in Birmingham and being a Brummie unique to them. So we're trying to gather all that information together, as I say, via the questionnaire initially. We're also working through social media, word of mouth. We're obviously engaging with projects such as this with My City, and then we're also going to be looking at further down the line, looking obviously through media sources, so papers, business papers, and the local papers as well, radio, but there's going to be a lot of online information as well. We're also setting up a website so that it can all be kind of brought together in one place if people are looking for that as well. So that's under development at the moment. But we're also going to be having YouTube and social media as well, because we recognise that not everybody's comfortable with social media. So we're trying to engage with as many parts of society, with as many people from all age groups and all backgrounds. So yeah, that's the ways that we're kind of looking at. But if anybody's got any suggestions for the good ways, then please, we'd really love to hear from you.
And of course, we want to engage with communities from the very beginning, don't we? From the research stage to completion.
Yeah, it's incredibly vital that the design source that is coming from its communities. So we want it to feel, everything to feel very familiar and like they're represented. So the designing is really coming from that feedback and that information that we're given. So it really has to be community led. So it's vital.
And you want to hear their memories, their stories. That's going to be part of the design for the panels.
Absolutely. The idea is that the panels are led from that information, led from that design source that we kind of, that inspiration that we're going to be given through those questionnaires, and through, if people don't prefer not to have a questionnaire, if they prefer to send stories or photographs or anything on social media or through the website, they can contact us through our emails, which we'll give later as well. Maybe that's a preference that they have. Maybe they'd like to set up a Zoom meeting with us and we can chat to them, and they might find that more personal. At the moment, it's quite difficult to obviously be meeting people one-to-one. So we're trying to be quite inventive with the ways that we can be contacted. But yeah, it has to come from that information that we're provided with. The idea is not that it's a vanity project. It should be a live project that reveal really interesting information about different communities and individuals in the community and about the city itself as it is now.
And what is different about stitching to many other forms of expression with fabrics, and why is it important to retain it as an art form?
I think it's incredibly important because it's a personal art form. Everyone has an experience of it, so it might be just through the wearing of garments that you're used to having textiles in your life, but everyone in reality has more of a contact than that, whether they realise it or not. But within all of these cultures, there's history of stitch, so it's not unique to one particular community or culture. It's been used worldwide, and they've developed their own stitches, and we're looking to kind of help to spread information and knowledge of those stitches, but also, you know, if people have never seen it before, we'd like to introduce them to it. It's very relaxing. There's lots of benefits from doing it. It is a really good way of making new friends and learning about people as well as the skill. But also, it's interesting for us to collect data about how people have been taught within their own home cultures, how that stitch has been used for them, whether there's particular colourways that they normally use. I always liken stitch to a language. You know, words have come in and out of fashion, and there's reasons for that. It's the same with stitch. Stitch has come from particular places through social economic changes for us, and we can track where those things have come from. So sometimes people aren't even aware that these stitches are from Kenya or India or France or wherever, but it's interesting to be able to share that information and that heritage as well, and to kind of really document that within part of the project. So yeah, sharing information, it's important.
Sure.
If I could just interrupt here, I think the other thing is the equipment you require is a needle and thread, and a piece of fabric can be an old shirt, an old tablecloth, a handkerchief. It doesn't have to be exquisite linen or anything. We can all put a needle in and take it out. It doesn't have to be a complicated stitch. With Helen's guidance, I know people will be able to achieve much more than they ever thought, and no one is excluded. Age, gender, anything, no exclusion. Helen has taught blind people to stitch, and from personal experience, I know people with severe hand disabilities have been able to stitch. It's amazing how people, once they want to stitch, find a way of doing it. And in the past, Helen has said embroidery is not an essential, but it brings joy to your life.
Yeah, I think that is actually a really important point, because it's not, we always kind of associate embroidery because it is a luxury, isn't it? It's not an essential thing. It's not the thing holding your garments together, for example, but it is the thing that we keep coming back to within our cultures. We decorate all the important things that mean things to us, for the occasions that mean the most to us. And that's one of the interesting things. So you're being able to share that and create something that people will be proud of across the city and across the region. So I think it's really important. And it's also, I work within this field, you know, every day. And for years, people have been saying to me, oh, it's dying art. And it's not, it's an exuberant living art. And I think it's really vital to be able to introduce people to it in that way, so that people see that it's exciting. It offers you things in return, you know, so there's lots of fantastic returns that you get from doing embroidery, whether it's, you know, well-being, you know, kind of, we use the word mindfulness now, but there's a lot of the associations of mindfulness related to embroidery and doing embroidery itself. Good for your hands, you know, and as Jill was saying, it shouldn't be that's something that people feel that they can't do, because there's always a way to kind of make it approachable for people, so there's no physical barriers to that. But also, as I say, it's that being able to engage with as many people as possible and to show them, even if they've got no knowledge and think it's not for them, I can guarantee there's something that's going to hook them in about it. So it is for everybody.
So
stitching is the same thing as embroidery.
Yes. Yep. Well, yes. You can use stitching. Embroidery is a form of stitching. I mean, you can stitch, as Helen said, to join the clothes together.
Yes.
You can stitch a button on. But embroidery generally is a decorative form that you would add a little, perhaps a monogram to your shirt, your initial on your handkerchief. it's not necessary, but it gives you a good feeling when you pick up a handkerchief that perhaps you've embroidered or a loved one has embroidered for you with your initial on. And it's all part of the mental process of connecting with people. And I think embroidery does that in lots of ways. And I think it's not out of the ordinary that we've chosen the word threads together, because we often talk about the threads of life when you're not talking about a physical piece of cotton or such, but you are talking about threads coming together. And I definitely feel that this project has the potential to bring not only families together, but communities together. Because just speaking to neighbours from other lands, they are thrilled that they could join with someone from a totally different country to come together to produce something for Birmingham.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So how do we actually aim to actually preserve and enhance the knowledge?
Well, I think we're hoping to preserve and enhance it by sharing it with as many people as possible. It's that idea of you know, when you drop the pebble in the water, you don't know how far the ripples go. So we might show X amount of people, but even then, if they share that information with another 2 people each, that's multiplied far beyond the way that we could think it would. So I think the more that people know embroidery, the more that people have an awareness of it and how it can be useful and beautiful in their lives. And also the practicalities. So these skills are transferable as well into kind of some of the garment making and buttonholes and all the rest of it. So, you know, quite often when I teach people, I'll be like, oh, and this would be the stitch that you use for, and we kind of talk about the practical aspects as well as the decorative. So it is, and it's those hand skills as well that are really important to kind of develop and use to maintain. But I think with regard to kind of preserving it as well, we're kind of, by not only sharing but also recording people's experiences of it. As I say, it's a living thing, it's a living art form and a living craft. So people's experiences of it are different. So how they've been taught how to do a particular stitch, you know, it's the idea of getting from A to C isn't always necessarily via B. So it's, you know, being able to understand the journey that they've taken with their stitch as well. And that will have been taught via people in their family or people in their communities, sometimes in schools, but they will have been from all around the world as well. So the experience of that is a very important thing to kind of look at and to kind of record whilst it is, as I say, in living memory. And then as for enhancing it, I mean, I think, you know, it is for everybody to join in. So the idea is that you don't have to be even from a Commonwealth country to feel like this is a project for you. This is for literally anybody who's in the area who feels that they'd be interested in this project. So it may be that your interest comes through your being part of the Commonwealth, but it may be that you're from another country, but that you would like to learn this and to meet new people, to learn their stories, and to be part of something that's going to create something beautiful. It's a lasting legacy of beauty that will be in the city for a long time. So it may be that that's the interest, and it is, as I say, for everybody to be involved. I think it's really important.
Good. And you're going to use public displays and online demonstrations, are you?
Yes.
Yes. And from a personal experience, I used to have a needlecraft shop, and we ran an annual exhibition of work. And the number of people who came from far and wide because they knew someone who'd got a small piece of stitched work in my shop window. And it was amazing how far people travelled. And I'm sure Helen will agree with me that if you put a stitch, even a couple of stitches into something, it becomes part of you. And so when these things are, these panels are completed, Birmingham City Council have agreed that they will exhibit them in the smaller museums around the city. Again, this will encourage people to travel to the other side of the city, a big thing in Birmingham. If you're from the south, you tend to stay south. If you're from the north, you tend to stay north. But we hope that this will encourage people to go to the other side of the city, to find Selly Manor, to find Blakesley Hall, or other buildings around the city, because their piece or their friend's piece of work is being exhibited. The exhibits will change from time to time. They'll be on a rota going around the city. So we're really thrilled that the museum and art gallery see this potential within what we're trying to achieve.
Fantastic. And I gather, Helen, are you able to give us a short demonstration?
Yeah, so we've been talking about being able to share information, and during this current time, obviously it's quite difficult. So I've been doing a lot of work online with people in Zoom formats and putting things on YouTube and social media so that people can access that. But you can do it one-to-one, so that you're seeing it, you know, one-to-one. You can discuss how people might change what they're doing or improve their technique or learn something from scratch, what stitches they might want to put where. And equally, as I say, they can then send me photographs that I can give them feedback on. So it's actually quite an interactive way of learning. I've been really pleasantly surprised by the process. And actually, I wanted to demonstrate for you how to do a couple of stitches and how easy it is to do some of these things and for you to see it, because it's possibly easier even for you to see it online than it is actually during a class, because I use a clamp that I put around my neck that I can put my my recording equipment into. And it means that you see exactly what my hands are doing, you see what I see. So I'm just going to demonstrate that with a couple of stitches.
Fantastic.
Let me just show the frame across.
And starts, I must say that do not think you cannot do these stitches if you're left-handed. No exclusion. I'm left-handed, and again, going back to my shop, 2 of my tutors who came in to do lessons were both left-handed. No exclusions at all. And it doesn't matter if you're a huge lorry driver, which
or a small lorry driver,
or somebody fairly petite like myself. All stitch.
I think the important thing is, though, that actually, whether it's left or right-handed, most of the stitches are stitched the same way.
Yeah.
There are a few that are different, but actually I can teach you both left and right-handed, so it makes no difference. So yeah, please don't start off by. But can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So if I show you French knots, for example, so you wrap around the needle, you go down next to yourself and you pull tight to the face of the fabric so that you don't end up with a loop, and then you pull. So I can show you that in repetition, but I'll do it left-handed this time. So same thing, hold it onto the needle, take your needle down into position, pull the twist to the face of the fabric and go down. So hopefully you can see from that, this is pretty straightforward. If I show you a second stitch that's very easy and is set up already, I'll show you some feather stitch. So I'm up in the middle and I've got a central line drawn in. You come down on the right hand side, give yourself a little loop that you hold in place, come down slightly lower than where you went down on the right, in between the stitch and the central line, come up in that loop and you hold it in place. And then you'll travel straight across to the other side. And because you went down on the left hand side, you'll come up left of the centre, slightly further down in the loop. And you keep pulling. But you can see it's quite clear. Fluff. It's quite clear to see the stitches, so you can see it's developing. And you can repeat things. Things will be on YouTube as well. So you'll be able to see clips of these. We'll have stitch diagrams on the website with links straight across to the YouTube site so that you can see them as many times as you want. You can pause them, you can put them on, pause them, work along with them, redo them, re-see them as many times as you need or want. And as I say, there are going to be live options as well so that you can have meetings where we set up. So I've got 2 cameras like this, and I can control that you're seeing the when I'm the host, I can control that you're seeing the one with my hands, and then we can talk about it. And and it's quite a clear way of actually being able to demonstrate. So,
yes. So Helen,
so,
the community groups will decide the pattern, will they?
So the idea is, if I just take this off a second, the idea is that the feedback that we receive from the questionnaires and from the groups basically create kind of a lot of visual information for me, so I can then go away and I'll design pieces. If I'm then not sure, I can go back and speak to those groups and say, oh, hey, have I misunderstood this? I'm not sure I've quite got that. Or, you know, you have to be humble when you're designing for somebody else. So you kind of have to make sure you're getting that right. And it has to really represent them. They need to see themselves in those designs. So once we've actually got to the end of the designing process, we then will go back to that group. And the idea is that we'll get feedback from them. So, you know, we can tweak the pieces until they feel that they're happy and it represents them and how they see themselves. And the idea is then that, you know, once we've got to that point that they're happy, then the pieces will be digitally printed onto big pieces of fabric. They're about, the panels themselves, the working area will be about 1 metre square. And the idea is then that that creates a basis upon which we can do the stitching. Now, the format for the stitching is, it could be that we do round robins, where we send out the panels to a particular person or a particular group that get together, because I know there are some people who have been shielding and would prefer to have it on their own. There's other people who'd be happy to meet up with groups, small groups that they're in already. So it really is led by the people within those groups. So they let us know how they'd like to work. So we can send out either the whole panel and they can work on it together, or they work on it for a week and then they send it to the next person, or however long they'd like to have it for. And then we're also going to have small kits that we can put together that are taking parts of the panel. So the idea is that they kind of indicate which panel they'd like to work on, and then we'd send kits out to them with the threads and the fabric. The design's already on that, and they can then stitch that part as they see fit, and then they send it back to myself and Jill, and then those can be applied onto the panel, so they'll be integral to the pieces once we've finished working with them.
So going through the procedure, sorry, Jill.
And I was just going to say the common theme through all the panels will be the image of the flag and emblem of the country, together with perhaps a national flower or tree. But again, we will go by the suggestions of the citizens of those countries. But we felt if we had this sort of, we know that every country's got a flag, most countries have got a motto, and these things will form a basis. And then whatever people, somebody might remember a bird or a blue sky, or a particular meal that they enjoy, or a particular fruit that is exclusive perhaps to their country, that again could show A, their diet, and B, something that's unique to their area.
So every panel will basically have the nation's flag on it, etc. And then based on the feedback you get from the forms, what happens, for example, if you get 6 forms back from Ugandan communities? How will you decide to proceed with 6 different thoughts?
So essentially, I think the idea is that we'd have more conversations with them. So we'd basically be looking at what are the key pieces of information that are coming forward, how can we represent those, you know. So it may be that you know, we've heard a lot about, for example, people who came over with the Windrush, how a lot of them had a particular fish bowl that they had with fish that reminded them of being near the sea, being at home. It might be that the record player was vitally important, and they'd have parties where they'd wear their best clothes and they'd get their records out and they'd dance to music from home, or music that was inspired by their land. So, and that was vitally important for them. So it may be that there's connections that across the 6 different questionnaire feedbacks that are very similar. So we'd pick out and try and really kind of get to the core of how we can represent those stories with that similarity. If there are very differing stories, we'll talk to them about that, about what we think is the most important, is really representative, how we kind of include these stories together. So because it's a live project, we can design as we go. So
sure.
yeah.
But you've got a lot of designing to do then, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got 70 plus panels to design.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first panel, which is the panel, is actually designed already.
Right.
So the idea is that we'll basically be designing throughout the whole project, and that we'll have to be stitching and designing as we go. So the idea is that the first panel is actually already done, so it's ready to stitch. So we're looking for some volunteers. We've got some volunteers already, but we're looking for the people who would like to volunteer to stitch.
So is it a secret what that panel is, or?
No. Let me grab.
Whilst Helen's getting that, can I say, there's
well, Birmingham City Council.
This is at half scale, so it's the civic
panel.
Panel, and there's also, it's not just countries we're looking at as well. We're looking at a sport panel, arts and culture panel, an industry and business panel, so a music panel. So it's really looking at bringing all of the different parts of the city and its people together, as I say. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, I know I said this before, it doesn't have to be that you're actually from a Commonwealth country. It could be that you're living in Birmingham, you feel a connection to the sports that we do here, or the music, or, you know, it might be that you want to work on those panels and you'd like to give us some feedback about those. So it is for everybody, as I say.
Look, of course, if you're going beyond the Commonwealth, you'll have more than 70 if you're going to include.
Well, we're keeping yeah, we're keeping the country and territories to the individual ones. So we've got they're represented in all of those. But then, as I say, there's room within the kind of sports, the arts and culture, the business and industry. There's room within that for people's own ideas. So it may be that they don't fit into one of the other communities and territories, but they do have things that they'd like to input or would like to just part of the stitching process for the other panels.
Great. So as well as contributing to the design by filling in the forms,
yes.
How do you engage with, you want the communities to also engage with actual stitching itself?
Yes, we need.
You'll go back to those who submitted forms and invite them to actually get involved in stitching.
Yes, so the idea is that people can volunteer. It might be that they don't feel they've got a connection or a story that they want to share with us in that way through a questionnaire, but it might be that they've given us some photographs of the fashions that they had, the kind of get-togethers they had in their home countries. You know, it might be that those, and they share those through social media, but it might be that they would just like to be involved in the stitching part of this, and there's a really big need for that as well. So it would be great if they could contact us. We've got emails for us to give to them. We've got, as I say, the YouTube and Facebook site. We've got a website which is under construction at the moment. There's lots of ways for them to contact us and just say, hey, I'm looking to be involved in the stitching part of the process. I'm a non-stitcher, I'd like to learn from scratch, or, you know, I've got some experience already, but I'd like to develop more knowledge. So we really kind of go from there. So we're going to take the individual from the point they're at and really move them forward. And if they'd like to work individually, or if they'd like to work in a team, then they just need to let us know that, so that we can put them to work appropriately. And it doesn't be a long, laborious process. It might be that they say to us, oh, I can do a couple of mornings, or I might do some stuff at home and I'll have it for, you know, a week or whatever. Okay. They just need to let us know how involved they want to be in the project, and we can facilitate that for them.
And that's partly answers my next question, where would they be doing this? So it could be at home. Oh, Jill Threads Together. That's the email address. That's
our email address. Sorry, yeah, so, as we were talking about communication. So it's either Jill or Helen. You can have Helen at threadstogether.org.uk, jill.org.threadstogether.
Yep, fantastic. I'll mention that
there for a moment.
Thanks, Jill. And when the panels are made, where they'll be exhibited in, you say, smaller museums around the city, hopefully. Presumably, also the intention is to have them displayed in connection with the Commonwealth Games.
Yes, yeah, we've been discussing that. So we were talking about potentially having them in the Alexander Stadium, which will be the kind of key key site for the opening and closing ceremonies, and obviously for the athletics as well. So we've kind of been discussing that. So we've got no promises on that, but it would be great if they could be. So we'll see what happens with that. But certainly we know that there'll be a cross-region exhibition. So as Jill said, sometimes we can kind of think we'll have been in the city for a number of years and we haven't been to some of these places across the other side because it's the other side. But the idea that it creates it's like a vehicle for a shared vision of the celebration of the Commonwealth and what it is to be a Brummie and Birmingham itself. And this moment in time where the Commonwealth Games are coming to us. So it's really a celebratory piece for that. But the idea is that it will be across multiple venues, and that people, it will be free to get into, so that you can go once, you can go as many times as you like, but it will create a trail, if you will, across the city. So it might be that you only want to go to the ones local to you, but you'll still get to see something, or it might be that you want to go to all of the venues, and you'll really learn a lot about the culture of the people in the city, the stories of the people in the city, how they came to be here, and what the city is now, the zeitgeist of what it is to be a Brummie now. So I think it's really important to be able to get as many people as possible.
We've got 10 minutes left, so I'm going to sort of move on. What will happen to the panels after the exhibition? I gather that Birmingham City Council will become the custodian of the panels. Hopefully that doesn't mean they'll all be put in a pile somewhere in the basement and never seen again.
I know, well, that's one of the things about taking them round, because there's quite a few venues and it will take 2 or 3 years for them to all go to all of the venues. Could I just say, I think there's people waiting to ask questions.
I thought I'd asked, I thought I'd dealt with those. Right, can it be a picture of the canal and horse-drawn barge?
Yeah, absolutely. So if this is something you have a strong memory of, then definitely, we'd love to hear your information, or if it's a particular area. We know that the waterways are so important. We always used to say up the cut, but it's they're so important in Birmingham, and it's really important part of our story in our city. So if you have a particular memory that you think is important, or a particular location in mind, then yeah, absolutely, we'd be really on board for including that.
Yeah, hopefully that answers that question. And by all means, those listening in, if you'd like to put more questions to them, we'd love to be able to answer them. Going on to how can you help, Jill? We've got the questionnaire, so we'll send that out to anybody who wants it.
That's it. And if they contact us on our email address, we can email them the questionnaire straight away, no problem. And they can email the answers back or by post.
And that's on jill@threadstogether.org.uk or helen@threadstogether.org.uk.
That's it. The website will be www.threadstogether.org.uk. But as Helen said, that's in the process of being built at the moment. So contact us first of all by email.
By email.
And
the legacy of the project?
Well, it's
I think the legacy, it's obviously a physical artistic outcome. So you've got the physical panels being created and being worked in the city by as many people as possible within the city, and with the outcome being those pieces, but also the recording of those stories, those memories, those the important things that have made them feel that they've saved within their life from wherever they are, how that's kind of impacted their lives, but we're looking at obviously multi-generational as well. So it might be being a Brummie that came here in the 60s, they've now got children or grandchildren who are third generation Brummies, but they will have retained information and still be living within cultural stories from back home as well, from their grandparents' home or their parents' home. So how does that influence you as a Brummie now in Birmingham? So the legacy is the physical outcome, the recording of the stories, the archiving of that, but also, you know, bringing together that as much as possible. But also, I think, you know, being able to give people skills. So, you know, embroidery is a skill. It doesn't change, it doesn't go away. So the idea of being able to be providing somebody with a new skill or extending their technique and improving their technique as well. It really, as I say, that's also a legacy. It's making sure you're preserving this handcraft.
Yeah, we've got a question from Jane. I like the idea of the trail of the panels. Would it be possible to do something similar to the previous owl, bear and book bench, etc., which Birmingham has previously had, maybe in the summer of the games?
That's very much our idea. And I must say, we took that from the owl project, because I know that the museum and art galleries were delighted how it took people into new venues. And the same will be applied to this. But again, because people were involved, children were involved in the design of owls or bears or whatever, so they took their parents to see their bear right on the other side of the city, and people were prepared to make that journey because it was personal to them. And again, this we hope will happen with the embroidery.
Fantastic. It sounds really... Sorry, Helen.
So I was just going to say, I must say that the city have been very supportive. People may wonder how we came to use the city crest. Again, the city were very generous in granting us permission because, as you may know, you cannot use the city crest without prior permission from the City Council. So again, we're very grateful to them for giving us that permission. And right from the start, we've been delighted from the support that we've had, and look to the city council and citizens to support this project, because it's something for everyone. In our questionnaires and any publicity that we're issuing, we emphasise that no one is excluded. We can't think of a reason why anybody couldn't take part. That's not very good English, but you can, if you want to, you can take part. That's the only criteria.
Fantastic. Any final comments from you, Helen?
Yeah, I just think, as I say, it's been a great opportunity to use this presentation today to try and get our information out to as many people as possible. So we're really thankful for that, and thank you for hosting, chairing, Keith. But I think, yeah, it's one of those things that don't sit at home and think this isn't a project for me, because it's a project for everybody, and it just really depends on you how you'd like to be involved, whether it's sharing your story, whether it's sharing your skill of stitching, whether it's being prepared to provide a bit of your time to learn some stitching, you know. So there's something for everybody in this project. It's a fully inclusive, regardless of what age, what background, you know, it doesn't matter to us. So we just like to have you all present to kind of be involved in the way that you're happy to be involved.
Great. Well, to all the community groups out there, or those who've, as parents or maybe themselves are from an overseas country and now settled in Birmingham, Greater Birmingham, please join us, please get involved. We'd love to have you on board. There's plenty to do and plenty of potential to express your talents and your arts. So please get involved. Contact Jill at threadstogether.org.uk or Helen at threadstogether.org.uk. We'd be very pleased to have you on board. We'll be sending out the forms for you to fill in due course. And obviously through the Birmingham Commonwealth Association, who are working with you, we'll be getting forms out to our database and all the communities we engage with. So thank you, panelists, Jill and Helen, for a really nice presentation. A very unique thing to do. And I think we've got a couple of seconds left if you want to say any closing words.
Yes, well, I look forward to to future generations enjoying what we're enjoying presenting today.
Thank you, Jill. And thank you, Helen. We now hope to move on with the project. Of course, we're applying to become a charity as well, a registered charity, which will help us hopefully, particularly with funding. So yeah, in 18 months' time, we hope to have, if not less, 80 panels somewhere around the city, representing
all around the city.
all around the city, the diverse family of the Commonwealth and other countries from the European Union, etc. So the opportunity is there to everybody out there to contribute, and we look forward to them contributing. So thank you both very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
For support of others. Thank you.
Thank you.